Bob and Carol, Ted and Alice.
Hello, Quentin.
Hey, Kim, how you doing? Good to see you.
So, what made you choose Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice?
Well, one, it's one of my favorite movies. All right, I think it's one of the great first films ever made, and Paul Mazursky is my favorite of the writer-directors, of especially comedy writer-directors of the 70s. But one of the things that happened was Sony came to me with their Columbia catalog and what films I could choose that would represent the era that my movie Once Upon a Time in Hollywood takes place in, basically between 68, 69, and 1970. And one of the ones that jumped out to me immediately that I almost the bedrock to build all the movies around was Bob and Carol, Ted and Alice. Bob and Carol, Ted and Alice! And one is because it deals with that era in a very specific way that makes the movie completely unique. It couldn't have been made before. It couldn't have been made in 1966, for example. All right, and frankly, it could have been made in 73 or 74, but it would look completely different than it looks for the 1969. But also, I do think, along with Shampoo, which is another Columbia movie, it's actually I think it's the best sex comedy that Hollywood had made during that era. And I don't mean bedroom farce. I mean, it's a sex comedy. It's about sex, and it's about sexual mores and the changing sexual landscape. Yeah, they're very affluent. Yeah. Well, it was because it was America, especially upper crust America, white affluent America. They were experiencing the sexual revolution in a way that other people in America weren't, because they had the money to afford it, and they had they could be chic about things.
Yes.
And you're right, this movie deals with it in a very straightforward manner. And even if you think about some of the movies that happened in the next year, in 1970, in a lot of ways, I actually think Bob and Carol, Ted and Alice is more forthright than they are. And I know this because I was 6 years old at that time. So I saw Bob and Carol, Ted and Alice. It was an interesting experience being a little boy who, a lot of this is going over his head. But I remember the adult audiences reacting to the movies.
Yeah.
And you have to understand, these audiences for the new Hollywood movies, they had grown up on the old Hollywood movies. They weren't used to this. This was brand new for them. But until you get to Shampoo, none of them deal as forthrightly with it as Bob and Carol, Ted and Alice. Bob and Carol, Ted and Alice! Mazursky based the script on him and his wife Betsy going to like a weekend at a sexual encounter group type of place. And I think the philosophy that's gotten across, in the movie it's called The Institute. And the philosophy that's gotten across, how would you describe it? It's like self-examination, getting rid of hypocrisy, both self-hypocrisy and social hypocrisy and sexual hypocrisy, and about sexual freedom, almost an Anais Nin type of view of, hey, well, it is what it is.
Giving up your hang-ups.
Yeah, get up your hang-ups. If there were no hang-ups involved, then none of this would be a problem.
Yes.
And, but it's as much about self-examination as it is about the sexual aspects. And one of the things that I find interesting is, I think Bob is meant to be this sexy movie star version of Mazursky, of Paul Mazursky. He's a documentary filmmaker in the film. And I think Carol is meant to be this sexy movie star version of his wife Betsy. And if you think about the movie, one of the things that's interesting is, Carol is very much in the mold of a 60s housewife. She doesn't have a career. Bob is the one with the career. He's a documentary filmmaker. Bob has got a glamorous career, and it's afforded them a lot of luxury. And Bob is the one going on business trips and jetting around here and there. Carol doesn't seem to have a career. She's a mother. She's raising the children, and she's creating a happy home for her and for her family, but seemingly for Bob. It seems to be the implication.
Yeah.
So they go to this, they go to the Institute, and they have this, what they think is a life-changing awakening, enlightenment of how to be and how to behave. Now, Bob, I think, grooves on this idea. I think he finds the whole philosophy about it very intellectually stimulating. I think he likes it. But at the end of the day, I also think, he's adopting it a bit like a fad. You're usually into fads for a while until they burn off. And I think that is how he's kind of looking at it. You know, like going to a fat farm and then you go and now you clean up your act for 4 months, you know, when you get back home. Something like that. And I'm not saying that he's going to lose it, and I'm not saying he doesn't think he's sincere. I'm just saying it's more he's intrigued by the idea. Carol, I do believe, feels that this philosophy is what she's been waiting for her whole life. That she didn't even realize that she was sort of unsatisfied with her wife's situation of creating this home life for Bob. And this has filled it. This has given her a direction. It's given her a sense of being. Oh my God, I completely recognize what these people are talking about. I've been thinking it all along, but I've never been able to put it into words. So she approaches this whole new philosophy, not like a religious zealot, but she is a completely true believer. She understands it in a way that Bob doesn't. And in a way, in the couple, for the first time, she takes the leadership position because she kind of assumes the role of moral authority over every incident that happens. But do you think that's a pretty good reading on the movie? He thinks he did something wrong. Maybe he was led to it by that weekend, but now he feels bad. Now he's the old Bob.
Yeah.
So he is actually confessing and wants some reckoning from her. She bought the philosophy. She forgives him. But what's also interesting is the fact that it's what affects Ted and Alice. It even affects Bob, her reaction to it. He even reacts badly to her understanding.
Yes. Yeah.
Which just means that how much she bought into that philosophy. Well, anytime you go together with your friends because you had some big weekend and say my life is completely different now, they're all going to look at you a little cockeyed.
Yes.
You know, and then and then in a way, the Institute just becomes a magnifying glass for just the times that they are living in.
Yes.
Yeah, you get the impression that Ted and Alice would be much more comfortable in 1965 or 1966. 69 is chafing them a little bit, especially Ted, because he kind of feels maybe he's missing out on something.
Right.
What happens at the Institute starts off the story and the predicament that happens between the two couples. I don't think he's endorsing or making fun of the Institute's philosophy, but he's using it as the catalyst to start a much huger discussion of what does marriage mean in this new world? What does sex mean in this new time? And we all are just a bunch of hung up people. And what if we were to get rid of our hang-ups? I think that's what he's trying to get at. The physical act of intercourse.
Boom.
Yeah, in his autobiography, Show Me the Magic, he describes the events at the end of the movie in a more literal way, far more literal way than the way he shot it, which is very ambiguous.
Right.
So, do you think they had sex? Bob and Carol, Ted and Alice.